The crystal towers of Vorthan Prime stretched high into the purple sky. Inside the largest tower, 12 alien species sat around a massive circular table. The air buzzed with tension and angry voices. Ambassador Tae-ho sat quietly in his chair, watching the chaos unfold around him. His advisor, Min-ji, stood behind him, her hand resting on a data pad filled with trade numbers and statistics. "Humans have gone too far this time," shouted Krill, the Vrexian representative. His 4 eyes glowed red with anger as he slammed his clawed hand on the table. "They build faster ships than ours. They make better medicines than ours. They even grow food better than species who have been farming for thousands of years." The other aliens nodded and made sounds of agreement. Vesh, who spoke for the Nethani people, stood up slowly. Her tall, thin body swayed as she pointed one of her 6 fingers at Tae-ho. "Our healing crystals used to be the best medicine in the galaxy. Now nobody wants them because humans make pills that work better and cost less money." Tae-ho kept his face calm, but Min-ji could see his jaw tighten slightly. She had worked with him for 5 years and knew all his small signs of frustration. The humans had offered to share their medical knowledge with the Nethani many times. Each time, the Nethani had said no because they were too proud to learn from a younger species. "The humans arrived in our galaxy only 50 years ago," continued another alien. "This one was Drex, who looked like a giant lizard with blue scales. In that short time, they have built colonies on 17 worlds. They control major trade routes. They have the strongest defense fleet. This is not normal growth. This is aggressive expansion." Tae-ho finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but clear. "We have followed every galactic law. We have paid all required fees. We have never attacked another species or taken territory by force. Everything we have built, we built with our own hands and our own knowledge." "That is exactly the problem," hissed Vesh. "You make the rest of us look bad. When the smaller species see how successful humans are, they start asking why their own governments cannot do the same things." Min-ji stepped forward and activated her data pad. A hologram appeared above the table showing charts and numbers. "If I may, honored council members, human trade has increased prosperity for all member species. The Cathari homeworld was dying from a plague until human doctors found a cure. The Zephyrian colonies would have failed without our atmospheric processors. The mining station on Titan 7 produces 3 times more ore now that we upgraded their equipment." "We did not ask for your help," growled Throck, the military commander from Vrexia. "We managed fine for thousands of years before humans appeared." "Did you really?" asked Tae-ho quietly. "Because our records show that galactic trade volume was declining for the past 200 years before we arrived. The communication network was failing. Food shortages were common on Outer Rim worlds. The Cathari were facing extinction. Several species were abandoning their colonies because they could not maintain the technology needed to survive on harsh worlds." The room fell silent for a moment. Then Krill stood up again, his voice louder than before. "We do not need to listen to human propaganda. The facts are simple. Before humans came, we had stability. We had order. We had peace between species. Now we have competition. We have change. We have chaos." "You have progress," said Min-ji. "You have better living standards. You have longer lifespans. You have access to new worlds that were impossible to colonize before." "We have humans making us look incompetent," snapped Drex. Every time there is a problem, people say, ask the humans, or humans would know how to fix this. We are tired of being compared to you. Tae-ho looked around the table at the 12 alien faces. Some looked angry, others looked embarrassed. A few looked almost sad. He realized that this was not really about trade or territory. This was about pride. The older species could not accept that newcomers had become more successful than them in such a short time. "What exactly are you proposing?" he asked. Krill smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "We are calling for a vote of no confidence in human membership. We propose that humanity be removed from the Galactic Trade Council immediately. All human colonies outside the Sol system must be abandoned. All human trade agreements with council members will be canceled. Humans will return to their own space and stay there." "That is impossible," said Minji. "Millions of humans live on those colonies. They have families, businesses, entire communities. Some were born on those worlds and have never seen Earth." "Not our problem," said Vesh coldly. "You have 30 standard cycles to withdraw completely." "And if we refuse?" asked Tae-ho. "Then we will enforce the decision," said Throck with a grin. "The combined fleets of 11 species against 1. Even humans cannot win those odds." Tae-ho stood up slowly. Minji could see that he was thinking carefully about his next words. The entire future of human-alien relations depended on what he said now. "Before we vote," he said, "I want to make sure everyone understands what they are asking for. You want humans to leave completely, not just reduce our presence or limit our activities. Complete withdrawal." "Exactly," said Krill. "That means no more human-built fusion reactors powering your cities. No more human-designed atmospheric processors keeping your colonies alive. No more human medicines in your hospitals. No more human-trained maintenance crews keeping your technology working. No more human ships carrying cargo on the most efficient trade routes. Complete separation." Several aliens shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A few exchanged worried looks. But Krill just laughed. "We will manage fine without you. We did it before humans arrived, and we will do it again." "Very well," said Tae-ho. "Call the vote." One by one, each species voted. The result was 11 votes for removal and 1 against. Only the small delegation from Kepler 442b voted to keep the humans, but their single vote was not enough. Krill stood up triumphantly. "The motion passes. Humanity is no longer welcome in the Galactic Trade Council. You have 30 cycles to withdraw all human presence from Council space." Tae-ho nodded once. His face showed no emotion at all. "Humanity accepts the Council's decision. We will comply fully with your wishes." He paused and looked around the table one more time. "We withdraw completely." Something in his tone made a few aliens look nervous, but most were too busy celebrating to notice. They had finally put the arrogant humans in their place. They could go back to the old ways, the traditional ways, the comfortable ways. As Tae-ho and Minji walked out of the council chamber, she whispered, "Sir, when you said we withdraw completely, what exactly did you mean?" Tae-ho's calm expression finally changed. A small, cold smile appeared on his lips. "I meant exactly what I said. Minji, they want us gone? We will be gone, completely. They are about to learn the difference between having humans as partners and not having humans at all." Behind them, the aliens continued their celebration, completely unaware that they had just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. Captain Dongwu read the message 3 times before he believed it. The bridge of his colony ship New Sol was quiet, except for the soft hum of engines. His crew waited for orders, but he just stared at the screen showing the Council's decision. "Sir?" asked his first officer. "What are our instructions?" Dongwu set down the datapad and looked out at the planet below. Kepler 442b was a beautiful world with green forests and blue oceans. 50,000 humans lived down there. They had farms, schools, hospitals, and factories. Many had been born on this world and called it home. "We leave," he said simply. "All of us. Everything we built, everything we brought, everything we made better. We take it all with us." Across the galaxy, similar conversations were happening on 16 other human colony worlds. Dr. Hana stood in her hospital on Kepler 442b and watched her staff pack medical equipment into cargo containers. The hospital treated not just humans, but also the native Cathari population and visiting traders from a dozen species. "Doctor, what about our patients?" asked Nurse Yuna. "We have 12 Cathari in intensive care and 6 human children in the pediatric ward. We will stabilize everyone for transport," said Hana. "The Cathari who want to come with us are welcome. The ones who want to stay will be transferred to the old Cathari Medical Center." "But doctor, that facility is ancient. They do not have the equipment to treat serious cases. Some of our patients might die." Hana's hands paused over a medical scanner. "That is not our decision to make anymore, Yuna. The Council has spoken. They do not want human medicine in their space." On the mining station Titan 7, Engineer Jae Sung was busy with a different kind of packing. He stood in the control room of the massive ore processing facility, watching his team carefully remove every piece of human technology. "Are we really taking everything?" asked his assistant Gi-hun. "Everything," confirmed Jae Sung. "The fusion reactors, the gravity generators, the atmosphere recyclers, the quantum computers. If humans built it or designed it, it comes with us." "But sir, this station will not be able to function without our equipment. The aliens do not know how to maintain the advanced systems." Jae Sung shrugged. "Then they will have to learn. Or go back to the old ways of mining. Either way, it is not our problem anymore." The work was not easy. Humans had built their colonies to last. They had integrated their technology so deeply into the infrastructure that removing it was like performing surgery. But the humans were thorough and methodical. They had built these places, and they knew how to take them apart. What surprised many aliens was how many non-humans chose to leave with the humans. On Kepler 442b, nearly 3,000 Cathari packed their belongings and boarded human ships. Their leader, an elderly Cathari named Visk, explained his decision to the remaining population. "The humans saved our species from extinction," he said. "When the plague was killing our children, human doctors worked day and night to find a cure. They did not ask for payment. They did not demand territory. They helped us because it was the right thing to do. Now the Council throws them out like garbage. I will not stay in a place that treats good people this way." Similar scenes played out across human space. The Zephyrians on New Harmony had a choice between staying on their struggling colony or joining the human exodus. Most chose to leave. The human atmospheric processors had made their world livable. Without human maintenance, those processors would eventually fail. Commander Seok Jin coordinated the withdrawal from his flagship, the Incheon. His defense fleet was responsible for protecting 17 star systems. The logistics of moving so many people and so much equipment was staggering, but the humans approached it like everything else they did, with careful planning and efficient execution. "Status report," he called out. Kepler 442b is 60% evacuated, reported his operations officer. New Harmony is 40% complete. The mining stations are proving more difficult because of the integrated infrastructure. Timeline: at current pace, we will meet the 30-cycle deadline with 3 cycles to spare. Good. What about our alien allies? Approximately 40,000 non-humans have requested passage. Most are from species that have worked closely with us. The Cathari, the Zephyrians, some independent traders, a few scientists and engineers who want to continue their research. Seok-Jin nodded. The humans had always been inclusive. If aliens wanted to join human society, they were welcome. The Council had made this about humans versus everyone else, but the reality was more complicated. On Nexus Station, the largest trade hub in the galaxy, station manager Zecht watched the human evacuation with growing unease. Humans operated 60% of the cargo handling systems. They managed the complex scheduling that kept thousands of ships moving efficiently through the station. They maintained the quantum storage units that could compress massive amounts of cargo into small spaces. How long before they finish leaving? Zecht asked his aide. The last human transport is scheduled to depart in 12 cycles, sir. And the replacement staff? Still in training, sir. The human systems are very complex. Our technicians estimate they will need at least 60 cycles to fully understand the procedures. Zecht felt a cold sensation in his stomach. 60 cycles? We cannot shut down operations for 60 cycles. The economic damage would be enormous. Perhaps we could ask the humans to leave some advisors? Absolutely not. The Council was very clear. Complete separation. No humans in Council space, no exceptions. Back on his flagship, Seok-Jin received reports from across human space. The evacuation was proceeding smoothly, but he was also getting intelligence about what was happening in the systems they were leaving behind. "Sir," said his intelligence officer, "we are intercepting increased chatter from Council military forces. They seem to be having problems with their upgraded weapon systems." "What kind of problems?" "Targeting accuracy is down significantly. Fire control systems are malfunctioning. Several ships have reported complete weapons failures." Seok-Jin was not surprised. The Council had been happy to accept human upgrades to their military technology, but they had never bothered to learn how the systems actually worked. They just wanted the improved performance. "Any word from Earth?" he asked. "President Hyo-jun has approved the Exodus plan. The government is preparing to receive millions of refugees and relocate them to new colonies outside Council space." "Refugees," repeated Seok-Jin bitterly. 50 years of cooperation, and now we are refugees." On the agricultural world of Demeter 3, the evacuation had an especially bitter taste. Humans had turned this barren planet into a garden that fed millions of people across 3 star systems. Trade Coordinator Ilix watched the human farmers pack up their equipment and prepare to abandon crops that were weeks away from harvest. "This is insane," she muttered to her assistant. The humans were producing enough food to end hunger on 12 worlds. Now all of that will be lost. "Perhaps we can continue the operations ourselves," suggested her assistant. Ilix laughed bitterly. "With what knowledge?" "The humans offered to train our people dozens of times. Each time our leaders said no. They said we did not need to learn human methods. Now look where that pride has gotten us." As the human ships lifted off from Demeter 3, automated systems began shutting down across the planet. The atmospheric processors that maintained the artificial climate started showing warning lights. The massive farming robots that had worked, the fields day and night, powered down one by one. The evacuation was not just about moving people, it was about the systematic removal of 50 years of human innovation and progress. Every fusion reactor, every medical scanner, every quantum computer, every atmospheric processor, all of it was being carefully dismantled and loaded onto human ships. The aliens who remained behind were starting to realize what they were losing, but it was too late to change their minds. The Council had made their decision, and the humans were respecting it completely. Engineer Jae Sung stood in the empty control room of Titan 7 and took one last look around. Where there had once been humming machines and glowing displays, now there were only empty spaces and disconnected cables. The station could still function, but at perhaps 20% of its former efficiency. "It seems like such a waste," said Gi-hun sadly. "It is a waste," agreed Jae Sung. "But we offered to share our knowledge. We offered to teach them. They preferred to keep us at arm's length and just take the benefits. Now they will learn what those benefits actually cost." As the last human transport ship departed from Titan 7, the mining station's new alien crew tried to restart the ore processing systems. Alarms immediately began blaring as equipment overloaded and safety systems activated. They managed to shut everything down before any serious damage occurred, but the message was clear. The humans were gone, and with them went the knowledge that had made the impossible possible. Station Manager Zecht had not slept in 3 days. Dark circles surrounded his 4 eyes as he stared at the disaster reports flooding his desk. Nexus Station, once the pride of galactic commerce, was falling apart. "Sir, we have another cargo. Ship requesting emergency docking," reported his aide nervously. "The Vrexian Glory has been waiting in queue for 18 hours. 18 hours? Zecht's voice cracked. Before the humans left, the average wait time was 45 minutes. "Yes, sir. But without the human logistics system, we can only process one ship at a time. Our people are still learning how to operate the quantum storage units." Zecht rubbed his temples with his clawed hands. The quantum storage units were miraculous devices that could compress a cargo ship's worth of goods into a container the size of a closet. But they required precise calibration and constant monitoring. The human technicians had made it look easy, but now that they were gone, his staff was struggling with every operation. "What about the power grid?" he asked. "Unstable, sir. We had another blackout in Section C this morning. The backup fusion reactors are working, but they only provide 60% of normal power output." The truth was worse than Zecht wanted to admit. The main fusion reactors had been built by humans using advanced designs that no other species fully understood. When the humans left, they had taken their expertise with them. The alien technicians could keep the reactors running, but they did not know how to optimize them or repair them when things went wrong. On the agricultural world of Demeter 3, Trade Coordinator Ilix was facing her own crisis. She stood in the control center of what had once been the galaxy's most productive farming operation. Now half the screens showed error messages, and the other half were completely dark. "Report," she demanded. "Ma'am, the atmospheric processors are operating at 30% efficiency," said her chief technician. "The artificial weather system has completely failed. We had an unexpected storm yesterday that destroyed 2,000 acres of crops. What about the harvesting robots? 70% are offline. We cannot figure out how to reprogram them for the current growing season. The humans used some kind of adaptive learning system that adjusted automatically." Ilix closed her eyes and tried to stay calm. Before the humans arrived, Demeter 3 had been a barren rock. The humans had spent 20 years transforming it into a garden world that could feed millions. The technology involved was incredibly complex. Atmospheric engineering, soil modification, weather control, automated farming systems that could adapt to changing conditions. The aliens had been happy to enjoy the benefits, but they had never bothered to learn how it all worked. Now they were discovering that running a terraformed world required more than just pressing buttons. "Ma'am," said another technician hesitantly, "we are getting reports from the outer farming districts. Some of the atmospheric processors have started showing red warning lights." "What kind of warnings?" "We do not know. The error messages are in human technical language, and our translators cannot parse the meaning." Medical Director Fan was dealing with similar problems at the Central Hospital on Vorthan Prime. She stood in the pharmacy staring at nearly empty shelves where human medicines had once been stored. "How much do we have left?" she asked her. "Head pharmacist." "Perhaps 2 weeks' supply of the most critical medications. The human-synthesized antibiotics, the neural repair compounds, the regenerative tissue boosters, we are almost out of everything. Can we manufacture more ourselves?" The pharmacist gave her a look that mixed frustration with despair. "Director, we do not even know what half these compounds are made of. The humans kept offering to share the formulas and teach us the production processes. Our medical board always said no because they thought it would make us dependent on human knowledge. And now we are dependent on human medicines without knowing how to make them," said Fan bitterly. "It gets worse, Director. We have 53 patients in intensive care who require human-designed medical equipment. The diagnostic scanners, the cellular repair units, the brain activity monitors, all of it is starting to malfunction without proper maintenance." Fan felt sick. Those 53 patients included several important government officials and 2 of her own family members. Without the advanced human medical technology, many of them would die within days. The Vrexian military commander Throck was experiencing his own technological nightmares. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominance, watching his weapons officer struggle with the targeting computer. "Status report," he growled. "Sir, main guns are at 60% accuracy. The human-designed targeting system keeps giving error messages. Our technicians think there might be a software problem, but they cannot access the core programming. What about the other ships in the fleet?" "Similar problems across the board. The Vengeance has lost weapons targeting completely. The Destroyer had a fire in the weapons control room when they tried to override the safety systems." Throck clenched his fists. The irony was bitter. He had been one of the loudest voices demanding human removal from the Council. Now his own fleet was falling apart because it depended on human technology that no one else understood. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we are receiving distress calls from Outpost Delta 7. They report complete life support failure. Send a rescue ship immediately." "Sir, our rescue ships also use human-designed life support systems. If we send them, and those systems fail too—" Throck did not finish the sentence. He was beginning to understand the true scope of what they had lost. On Kepler 442b, the remaining Cathari population was facing extinction again. Without human medical support, the genetic treatments that had saved their species from the plague were no longer available. Elder Cathari leader Nisk sat in his empty medical center and contemplated the future. "How many of our people chose to leave with the humans?" he asked his aide. "Nearly 3,000, Elder. Mostly the young ones and the families with children." "The smart ones," said Nisk sadly. "They saw what was coming." "Elder, perhaps we could send a message to the human ships? Ask them to return? And say what? That we made a mistake? That we want them back?" The council voted to throw them out. They are simply honoring our wishes. Back on Nexus Station, Zect was discovering new problems every hour. The quantum communication system that connected the station to the rest of the galaxy was experiencing massive delays. Messages that should have taken minutes to transmit were taking hours or failing completely. "Sir, the communication array is overheating," reported his chief engineer. "Without the human cooling systems, we can only operate at 20% capacity." "Can we repair it?" "We do not know how, sir. The human engineers tried to train our people, but the technology is extremely advanced. Our best estimate is that we would need several years of study just to understand the basic principles." Meanwhile, reports were flooding in from across Council space. Mining operations were shutting down as human-built equipment failed. Trade routes were becoming unusable as cargo processing slowed to a crawl. Entire star systems were requesting emergency aid as their infrastructure collapsed. The small species that had voted to keep the humans were the first to speak out. Ambassador Kess from Kepler 442b sent an urgent message to the Council. "Honored colleagues," the message read, "we warned you that removing the humans would have serious consequences. Our world's population is now facing starvation as the agricultural systems fail. We formally request that the Council reconsider its decision." But the proud species that had led the vote against humanity refused to admit their mistake. Krill sent back a harsh response. The Kepler 442b delegation voted against the Council's decision. You chose to side with the humans over your fellow Council members. Deal with the consequences yourself. Similar responses came from the other major powers. They were willing to let smaller worlds suffer rather than admit they had made an error. Trade Coordinator Ilix stood on the balcony of her office and looked out at the dying farms of Demeter 3. In the distance, she could see massive dust storms forming where the weather control system had once maintained perfect growing conditions. The automated irrigation systems had failed that morning, and thousands of acres of crops were already withering in the artificial sun. "Ma'am," called her assistant from inside the office, "we just received another distress call. The colony on Theta 9 is reporting complete atmospheric processor failure. They have maybe 6 hours of breathable air left." Ilix did not turn around. "Send them what supplies we can spare, but it will not be enough. Theta 9 will have to be evacuated." "Ma'am, that is 50,000 colonists. Where will they go?" "I do not know," said Ilix quietly. "I honestly do not know." The exodus had ended exactly 1 week ago. In that short time, the carefully built infrastructure of galactic civilization was crumbling. The humans had not just left. They had taken with them the knowledge and expertise that held everything together. And the worst part was that it was only the beginning. As systems continued to fail and knowledge was lost, the collapse would accelerate. The galaxy was about to learn a hard lesson about the difference between using technology and understanding it. The council members who had voted so confidently to remove humanity were starting to realize that they might have just destroyed their own civilization. Economic analyst So Young sat in her comfortable chair aboard the human settlement ship Incheon, analyzing the reports coming in from across the galaxy. The data was overwhelming, but the pattern was clear. The galactic economy was not just declining. It was collapsing completely. "The numbers are worse than we predicted," she told Captain Dongwu during their daily briefing. "Galactic trade volume is down 73% in just 3 weeks. The Interstellar Banking Consortium has frozen all major lending operations." "What about unemployment?" asked Dongwu. "Catastrophic. 17 worlds have reported unemployment, rates above 60%. The manufacturing planet Forge Prime has shut down completely. Nearly 2 million workers have been laid off in the past week alone. So Young pulled up a holographic display showing trade route maps. Where once there had been bright lines connecting hundreds of star systems, now there were only scattered dots of activity. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a section of the map. The Cygnus Trade Corridor used to handle 30,000 cargo ships per day. Yesterday it processed fewer than 3,000, and most of those were emergency supply runs. On Forge Prime, factory supervisor Trell walked through empty manufacturing halls that had once hummed with activity. The matter compilers that had been the heart of the planet's industry sat silent and dark. These machines could transform raw materials into complex products using human-designed molecular assembly techniques. "Sir, we received another request from the Rexian government," said his assistant. "They want to know when production will resume." "Tell them the same thing I told them yesterday," said Trell wearily. "We cannot restart production without replacement parts for the compilers. Those parts are manufactured exclusively in human space, and the trade embargo prevents us from buying them." "Sir, what if we tried to reverse engineer the parts ourselves?" Trell laughed bitterly. "We have been trying for 2 weeks. Our best engineers estimate it would take 5 to 10 years just to understand how the molecular assembly process works. By then, our entire economy will have collapsed." The irony was not lost on him. Forge Prime had been one of the voices demanding human removal from the Council. They had complained that human technology was making traditional manufacturing obsolete. Now they were discovering that without human technology, they could not manufacture anything at all. The Galactic Communication Network was experiencing similar catastrophic failures. Network Administrator Kess stood in the primary control center on Communications Hub Alpha, watching error messages cascade across dozens of screens. "Status report," she called out to her team. "Ma'am, we have lost contact with 47 star systems. The quantum relay stations are failing faster than we can repair them." "What about the backup systems?" "Operating at maximum capacity, but they can only handle maybe 5% of normal traffic. Messages that used to cross the galaxy in minutes are now taking weeks to reach their destinations." Kess shook her head in frustration. The quantum relay network had been humanity's greatest gift to galactic civilization. It used principles of quantum entanglement that no other species fully understood. The human engineers had tried repeatedly to train alien technicians, but the technology was so advanced that most species had given up trying to learn it. Now they were paying the price for their intellectual laziness. Without the quantum network, the galaxy was becoming disconnected. Businesses could not communicate with their suppliers. Governments could not coordinate with their colonies. Families were losing contact with loved ones on distant worlds. President Hyo Jun of the Terran Republic received daily reports about the galactic collapse from his office on the human colony ship Seoul. His cabinet, including Foreign Secretary Junho, met every morning to discuss the increasingly desperate messages arriving from former council members. "What is the latest from Vorthon Prime?" asked Hyo Jun. "Supreme Chancellor Brix sent another message asking for technical assistance," replied Jun-ho. "He claims it is not a request for humans to return, just a temporary consultation to help with critical infrastructure problems." "And our response?" "I reminded him that the Council voted for complete separation. We are simply honoring their wishes. Any change in their official position?" "Not yet. The major powers are still too proud to admit they made a mistake. But the smaller species are starting to break ranks. We have received formal apologies from 7 council members so far." The collapse was accelerating as interconnected systems failed in cascade patterns. On the resort world of Paradise 7, Tourism Director Van watched her industry die as transportation networks broke down. "Ma'am, we have had to cancel 90% of our bookings," reported her assistant. "Without the fast transport ships, it takes 6 weeks to reach us from the core worlds instead of 6 hours. What about the life support systems for the underwater cities? Operating on backup power only. The main fusion reactors are showing serious stability problems. Our engineers are afraid to push them too hard. Paradise 7 had been built using human technology to create underwater cities and floating resorts. The complex environmental controls required constant monitoring and adjustment. Without human expertise, the artificial ecosystems were beginning to collapse." Medical Director Fan was facing the worst crisis of her career. The central hospital on Vorthan Prime was running out of critical medicines, and patients were dying from conditions that had been easily treatable just a month ago. "Director, we have lost 3 more patients in the past hour," reported her head nurse. "The neural repair compounds are completely exhausted, and the cellular regeneration units have started failing." "What about the diagnostic equipment?" "Most of it is offline. Without proper maintenance protocols, the quantum scanners have become unreliable. We are essentially practicing medicine with technology from 50 years ago." Fan stared at her patient reports. Before the humans arrived, her people had been dying from diseases and injuries that were now considered minor inconveniences. Human medical technology had nearly eliminated suffering in their society. Now they were watching that progress disappear. Day by day, the economic data So Young was collecting painted an even grimmer picture. The galactic banking system was on the verge of total collapse as trade networks failed. "The situation is unprecedented," she explained to her research team. "Currency exchange rates are fluctuating wildly because planets cannot communicate with each other reliably. The Vrexian credit has lost 60% of its value. The Nathani trading guilds have declared bankruptcy." "What about the core worlds?" asked one of her assistants. "Vorthan Prime is experiencing food riots. Their agricultural imports have dropped to 10% of normal levels. The Vrexian homeworld has imposed martial law to control civil unrest. 3 colony worlds have declared independence from their parent governments because they cannot maintain contact or receive support. The human settlement ships were receiving thousands of requests for aid every day. Former enemies were begging for help, but the human government's position remained firm. They had been voted out of the galactic community and would respect that decision completely." Captain Dongwu stood on the observation deck of his ship and watched the stars pass by. Somewhere out there, the civilization they had helped build was tearing itself apart. Part of him felt sad about the suffering, but another part felt vindicated. "Sir," said his communications officer, "we are receiving a priority message from Admiral Hyunwoo." "Put it through." The Admiral's face appeared on the main screen. "Captain, I have good news. Our exploration fleets have made contact with 17 new species in the Outer Rim. None of them are members of the Galactic Council, and all of them are interested in trade relationships with humanity." "That is excellent news, sir. What are they offering?" "Raw materials, agricultural products, and most importantly, genuine partnership. They want to learn from us instead of just using our technology. It is quite refreshing after dealing with the Council species." Dongwu smiled. "So we are not just surviving the exile. We are thriving." "Exactly. Our economy is actually growing faster now than it was before the Exodus. It turns out that trading with grateful partners is more profitable than being resented by prideful allies." Back in Council space, the collapse continued to accelerate. The mining station Titan 7 had been completely abandoned after its life support systems failed. The agricultural world Demeter 3 was losing atmosphere as its environmental processors broke down. Several colony worlds were preparing for total evacuation. Factory Supervisor Trell received the final blow to his manufacturing empire when the last matter compiler shut down permanently. His engineers had attempted an unauthorized restart procedure and caused irreparable damage to the quantum matrix. "Sir, that was our last functioning production unit," his assistant told him quietly. "How long before we can get replacement parts?" "Sir, with respect, there will be no replacement parts. The humans are gone, and we never learned how to make this technology ourselves." Trade Coordinator Ilix stood in her empty office on Demeter 3 and composed her final report to the Galactic Council. The planet that had once fed millions was now importing emergency food supplies just to keep its remaining population alive. "To the Honored Council," she wrote, "I regret to inform you that Demeter, Supreme Chancellor Brix had not left his office in 4 days. Empty food containers and used coffee cups covered his desk as he read report after report of civilization collapse. His aide brought him the latest casualty numbers with shaking hands. Sir, the death toll from infrastructure failures has reached 2 million across Council space. 17 worlds are requesting immediate evacuation. The Vrexian homeworld is experiencing continent-wide power outages." Brix rubbed his tired eyes. 6 weeks ago, he had been leading a proud galactic council that controlled hundreds of star systems. Now he was watching that same council tear itself apart. What about the economic situation? Galactic GDP has dropped 85%. The banking system has completely collapsed. 4 major species have reverted to barter economies. Unemployment is at 90% on the industrial worlds. And civil unrest? Riots on 12 worlds. 3 governments have fallen. The Nathani are in open civil war over resource allocation. The smaller species are demanding that we fix the crisis immediately, or they will withdraw from the council entirely. Brix stood up and walked to his window. Outside, he could see smoke rising from parts of the capital city where protesters had been clashing with security forces. His own people were starving because the food transport networks had broken down. "Call an emergency council session," he said quietly. "Full assembly. Every member species must attend." Economic Emergency Coordinator. Van had spent weeks preparing her presentation, but she knew the numbers would shock even the most pessimistic council members. She stood before the emergency assembly and activated her holographic displays. "Honored delegates," she began, "the statistics I am about to present represent the greatest economic catastrophe in recorded galactic history." The first chart showed trade volumes over time. The decline was so steep it looked like a cliff. Galactic commerce has fallen to levels not seen since before the formation of the Council 3,000 years ago. We have effectively lost 5 centuries of economic progress in 6 weeks. Murmurs of disbelief rippled through the assembly. The next chart showed unemployment figures. Joblessness now exceeds 70% across all council worlds. On the former manufacturing centers, it approaches 100%. We estimate that without immediate intervention, 50 million beings will face starvation within the next month. The third chart showed infrastructure failures. Red marks covered the galaxy map like a disease. Critical systems are failing faster than we can repair them. 43 star systems have lost interstellar communication. 37 worlds are experiencing life support emergencies. 19 colonies have been completely evacuated. Krill, who had led the charge against humanity, stood up from his seat. His 4 eyes were bloodshot. and his usually confident voice was shaky. Coordinator Van, in your analysis, what would it take to reverse this crisis? Van looked directly at him. Honored Delegate, there is only one solution. We need the humans to return. Not just some humans, all of them, with full restoration of their previous status and complete access to their technology and expertise. That is impossible, snapped Vesh from the Nathani delegation. We cannot simply admit that we made a mistake. It would destroy our credibility. With respect, Delegate Vesh, replied Van coldly, what credibility? Your homeworld is in civil war. Your colonies are being abandoned. Your people are dying. What exactly are you trying to preserve? The council chamber erupted in angry voices. Some delegates demanded immediate action to contact the humans. Others insisted that admitting error would be worse than enduring the crisis. In the chaos, Supreme Chancellor Brix stood and called for order. Silence! He roared. We will have a formal vote. All in favor of authorizing diplomatic contact with the human government? The vote was closer than expected. 7 in favor, 5 against. Just barely enough to authorize action. Diplomatic envoy Wu Jin received the council's message while aboard the human exploration ship Busan. He read it twice before calling Admiral Hyun-woo to discuss the response. They want to negotiate, he told the admiral. Complete reinstatement with full voting rights, reparations for the forced evacuation, and protection against future discrimination. Those are reasonable terms, said Hyun-woo. What is our government's position? That is the interesting part. President Hyojun wants me to present their offer to the cabinet, but he also wants me to present our new situation, which is, we do not need them anymore. Wu Jin arrived at the emergency council session 3 days later. The council chamber was half empty because several species could no longer afford to send delegates. Those who remained looked desperate and exhausted. Supreme Chancellor Brix stood to greet him. Envoy Wu Jin, thank you for coming. We are prepared to discuss full restoration of human membership in the Council. That is very generous, replied Wu Jin politely. However, I am afraid the situation has changed significantly since our departure. He activated his own holographic display, showing star charts of the Outer Rim territories. During our exile, humanity has established trade relationships with 17 previously unknown species. These civilizations are not members of your council, and they have proven to be much more cooperative partners. The alien delegates leaned forward, studying the charts with obvious concern. Our new partners are eager to learn from us rather than simply use our technology. They offer fair trade terms and genuine friendship. Most importantly, they do not vote to expel us when we become too successful. Krill stood up, his voice pleading. Envoy, surely you understand that the Council's decision was made in haste. We were not thinking clearly. The humans have always been valued members of galactic society. Valued? Repeated Wu Jin with a slight smile. 6 weeks ago, you voted 11-1 to throw us out of your society. You called us aggressive expansionists and destabilizing influences. You threatened military action if we did not leave. Now you call us valued? The Council made an error, admitted Brix. We are prepared to make substantial reparations for the inconvenience. Inconvenience? Wu Jin's smile grew wider. Chancellor, evacuating 50 million people and dismantling the infrastructure of 17 star systems is more than an inconvenience. But that is not the real issue. He changed his display to show economic data from human space. The real issue is that human civilization is now more prosperous than ever. Our economy has grown 30% since leaving Council space. Our new partners provide resources we never had access to before. Our technology development has accelerated without the need to constantly justify our innovations to skeptical council members. The council chamber fell silent. Ambassador Kyung-min, who had just arrived from the human capital ship, stood to deliver the final message. "The human government has asked me to thank the council for their offer," she said formally. "However, we must respectfully decline to rejoin the Galactic Council." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Several delegates stood up in shock. "Instead," continued Kyung-min, "we are announcing the formation of the Free Worlds Alliance. This new organization will be based on principles of mutual cooperation, shared knowledge, and genuine partnership. Any species that wishes to join will be welcome, provided they agree to our Charter of Equality and Cooperation." She paused and looked around the room at the desperate faces. "We are also prepared to offer emergency humanitarian aid to worlds facing critical infrastructure failures. However, this aid will come with conditions. Recipient worlds must allow human technical teams to train local personnel. They must agree to technology sharing agreements, and they must provide guarantees that human citizens will never again face discrimination or forced exile." Vesh stood up, her tall frame trembling with anger. "You cannot simply abandon the galactic community. You have responsibilities to the council." "Do we?" asked Kyung-min calmly. "You voted to expel us. You made it clear that we were not wanted. We respected your decision completely. Now you want us to ignore your vote and return anyway?" "The situation has changed," pleaded Brix. "We realize now that we need human expertise to maintain our civilization." "Yes, you do," agreed Kyung-min. "The question is, what are you willing to offer in exchange for that expertise?" Over the following weeks, individual species began approaching the humans separately. The smaller worlds that had voted against expulsion were the first to join the Free Worlds Alliance. They received immediate aid and technical support. The Cathari, who had already evacuated with the humans, became founding members of the new alliance. The Zephyrians quickly followed. Even some individual colonies from major powers began requesting to switch their allegiance. Admiral Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the latest reports come in. 3 more star systems had requested membership in the Free Worlds Alliance. 2 council member species were in preliminary negotiations to switch sides. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "we have received another message from Supreme Chancellor Brix. He is asking for a personal meeting with President Hyojun." "What is our response?" "The President will consider a meeting, but only if the Council formally apologizes for the forced exile and agrees to discuss reparations." The irony was complete. 6 weeks ago, the proud Galactic Council had voted to expel humanity from their society.